back in '98, it was my dream to get into symbiosis when I wanted to write my MBA exams. But I wasn't that good in mathematics, I couldn't even get the entrance here. And that was my dream, to come here as a student, and here I can't believe that I'm so excited today that I am here as a speaker. Thank you for this wonderful day. I really feel honored. Thank you very much. So I have a question for you all. How many of you all have the courage to follow your passion? Well, I started my career as a marketing professional in a retail company after my MBA. I worked for almost 6 years, and one day in 2006, April, I made a very big decision in my life, a decision to move out from the corporate life and choose my passion. And that passion was photography. During my early days, photography was just a hobby, and I had an inclination only towards the fancy camera gadgets, lenses, and the backpacks. I thought it's very fancy to carry around the backpack, be cool. It had nothing to do with photography as a profession. I always used to think when I was working that the amount of time and energy I'm spending to go to my work, to fulfill somebody else's target, to fulfill somebody else's dream, if I utilize the same thing to achieve my own dream and invest in myself, I can do something better. And that's when I thought I want to move away from the corporate world and do something and follow my passion. So I finally made up my mind and decided that okay, I want to be on my own. So I was quite curious about that. I called up the institute to check what it was, and it was a one-year course that was supposed to start in the month of August. I don't know what triggered me that moment. I decided I want to take this course without even knowing what my future was ahead. The next day I put my papers. I was always fascinated towards cars and bikes, and I wanted to be an automotive photographer. And during those days, I had a salary of around 15,000 a month, and I couldn't afford a course, something like which was costing about 8 to 10 lakhs, including the boarding fee. And I lost my parents at a very early age, and I always came up with my grandparents who are freedom fighters. With this kind of a salary, I couldn't afford a course like that. And finally, I told my granny that I want to do a course, and she actually helped me out by selling one of her land, and I borrowed some money from my friends, and finally I took up this course. And after a year, I came out. I specialized in automotive photography almost for a year. I didn't go out and meet any of the agencies because I wanted to improve my skills as a photographer. And fortunately, after this, I started meeting up with the agencies, and I started getting some very big national campaigns from leading brands in India. My work was all over India. I could see the leading dailies, hoardings, airports, everywhere. I started doing very well. I was very excited. It was like a dream come true. Where I was working from a corporate and where my work is from all over India, I was very, very excited. So this went on for a while, and in the year 2011, I could afford an international trip to Maldives, and that's when I went there and I saw a couple of scuba divers getting into the water. I was very excited looking at them. I also wanted to try that. And that was my first time introduction to the ocean. When I jumped in the water, I was awe-inspired by those fascinating marine life and colors and whatnot. So it was full of colors and life, and I was like in a different world altogether. It was so inspiring to look at those fishes, and that was the first time I came across something called as a manta ray. I didn't even know what this was during that time. It was some alien kind of looking animal with a wing, with a wide open mouth coming right up to me. I was so terrified, I didn't know what to do. I was shocked, and finally she came and bumped into me. I lost my breath. And after this, I got to know they are one of the gentle giants of the ocean. They're very curious to inspect the divers and all those things. So I was quite intrigued by knowing some of the facts of manta ray, and I started taking some pictures. So that happened. So things went on for a while, and in the year 2013, I was jogging in a park, and out of nowhere, I meet one of my old friend Karthik, where he was planning a dive trip to Sri Lanka. And he asked me whether I would like to join, and the first thing that struck me was underwater photography. And thinking about my travel about 2011 Maldives. But I knew that I wanted some underwater camera housing and equipment which was not available in India. And I also knew that one of his friends was joining from US for this particular trip, and immediately, without even knowing diving, nothing, I ordered for this equipment, which was costing me almost 6.5 lakhs. And I didn't know anything about this. I was only excited to do my first dive with a underwater housing and a camera. So then finally Sri Lanka happened. For 6 days we were there, and we did a advanced open water course. And the first time, and this was the first, I was very excited that I wanted to take a picture with my camera, and I got in the water. This was just before we started. We wanted to go to the dive, and I asked Karthik to take a picture of mine, and he gave a shock of my life, saying, "Ajit, I can see water inside the housing." I was shocked. When I looked at the camera, my camera was flooded. I don't know what went wrong. Maybe because of the excitement, I didn't fit the housing properly. But luckily, the water was just at the below of the housing, so there's a gap between the camera and the housing. So luckily, the camera was not damaged. Then finally, we continued the dive, and I finished my dive and just came back. And this was how I was looking, just to check another one. I was looking quite freaked out there. And then we do the dive. These were some of my first wreck diving pictures which I did, and I was very excited about this. And we finished the dive. I was so excited about this particular dive. I told my friends that I don't want to come back to Bangalore, and I want to continue my dive as specializing in wreck diving certification. So the next day I didn't even board the flight, and I lost the ticket, and I stayed there specializing in wreck diving. So after that, I was very enthralled by the underwater world, and when I came back, first thing what I did was I wanted to go back to Maldives, because Maldives is a diver's paradise. I wanted to shoot sharks and whales and shipwrecks and whatnot. And that was the first time I ever saw a shark right in front of me, and this was a picture taken by one of my friends while I was photographing a shark. She was coming right up to me, and I was so excited to make a picture of the shark. And I finished this particular dive, and the next dive I just go down on the reefs, and there's one amazing hawksbill turtle where she comes up to my camera, looks into my camera and says, "Hi, I am here. Do I know you?" This is one of my favorite pictures I could capture. She was so curious looking into my camera, and by photographing all these, I really got excited and inspired by doing more and more. I got greedy for travel. So I had remembered this manta ray which I told you in the 2011 trip. So I was on a liveaboard, and that night there were 2 or 3 manta rays which were circling around the boat, feeding on the plankton. And I was so excited to make a picture of this. I jumped in the water in the night, and for almost 3.5 hours I was just with this manta ray capturing the pictures, and it was looking very weird. That's the mouth of a manta ray, and she was trying to feed on the planktons. And after this particular dive, the next day we come and see this. That's a Nemo, as you all know, one of the most cutest and the most irritating fish I've ever met. They're very curious to look at the divers, and even as I was also curious to take the shot, I go closer to that. They're very playful. They just come up to the camera, they try to get inside, again come back. I mean, they really test your patience. So finally I got a nice picture of a Nemo getting closer. So then after Maldives, I was so inspired to travel the world, and finally what I decided was I just came back home, I sat in front of the system and started making plans to travel all over the world. I was fascinated with sharks, whales and shipwrecks. I want to know which are the places that we can dive with the sharks and whales. So then I got to know that there's a very nice place called Tonga where you can dive with the humpback whales. So then there's bull sharks in Fiji and all this. So then finally I made a travel plan where I wanted to travel across the globe and also got to know that there's possibility of diving with the great white sharks in Guadalupe. Then Galapagos was one place which is an underwater aquarium full of life and colors. And finally, as a kid, I was intrigued by the myth and mysteries of Bermuda Triangle. I used to tell my friends there's a huge monster there and a magnet there. Whenever the ships used to go, it just attracts you down. All crap. So finally, that was one of my dreams to dive in Bermuda Triangle, and I also made a plan to dive in Bermuda. So this was my plan. So I started traveling across the globe, and after that, I realized that I wanted to do something different. So that's when I wanted to plan diving in the cold waters. That was in Iceland, Russia, and high Arctic. So to dive in the cold water, it is not that easy to dive as a recreational diver. You have to get certifications like your dry suit diving and ice diving and whatnot. And it's a very difficult technique. I mean to master those techniques. And finally, I get certified as ice diver. I go to Russia. I finish my ice diving, and after that I go to Iceland. I actually dived in between the tectonic plates between North America and Europe, and I started traveling all over the world. When I started diving, there were a lot of amazing creatures which I had never seen on land. It was so fascinating, like this mantis shrimp, cuttlefish. And also some other kind of species finally started shooting some models underwater. So why are you all excited when you look at these pictures? Find out the animals. And in between this trip, I plan a trip to South Africa, and the first time I ever get to see a humpback whale breach. This was one of the most iconic images of the sea, and it's like a 40-ton missile shooting out of the water and immediately splashing down. I couldn't even imagine that these kind of things happen. It's like I've just seen an animal, okay, a tiger, an elephant, but these are like almost 40 feet, in length and 40 ton in weight, just breaching out of the water and splashing. It was unimaginable, witnessing these, whales breaching. Then I started traveling again to Indonesia and a lot of places across the world, shooting varieties of sea life. This was a humpback whale and a calf in Tonga. And I always thought sharks are gruesome killing machines, especially when I saw the movie Jaws. I swear I'll kill Steven Spielberg, whatever he had communicated. They're such amazing animals. They're so curious to come and check on you and what's happening. I have dived with one of the most of the sharks which are known for which has got a very bad reputation, like your bull sharks and great white sharks and tiger sharks. So these are some amazing animals who are which are very curious to come and look at you and not harm. So and this was one of my dive trips with the great white sharks in Guadalupe, Mexico. And then finally a school of jackfishes when a couple of divers was diving with them. And finally, I get to dive with a lot of sharks, the great hammerhead sharks and the silky sharks, and there were a lot of interactions with them. And sometimes I had to go below the sharks to get a shots like this, below the jaws. So there's some amazing creatures there. And finally, these are some of the pictures which I shot in Bermuda Triangle. I was so curious to know about the wrecks and those historic wrecks, what was the reason to go behind. But it wasn't that I had done some research like National Geographic or whatever. But finally, it was so fascinating diving in all those historic wrecks in Bermuda Triangle. So some of those big, that's a Hermes wreck. And then a couple of others. And finally, this was a picture in Iceland where I was diving between the tectonic plates. So those tectonic plates actually drift apart every year by 2 centimeters, the North America and the Europe plates. So it was so exciting to know these natural things, whatever happened in the world. And the water is so crystal clear that it's almost 100 meters, you can see the visibility. So these are some of the pictures which I had shot. And finally, I was very curious to specialize in cave diving, and this was in Mexico when I went there and specialized as a cave diver. And there are some amazing places there which is so mystical and surreal. So yeah, then comes the big thing. I actually decided that I want to dive with some of the pelagics and the big animals, and finally I made a trip to Mexico where I wanted to dive with the crocodiles. So I had always seen a crocodile in a national park where I was just behind the crocodile going in the waters with the heads up, and that was such a nerve-wracking moment that I had to get a shot of these crocodiles, and I had to get in the water. And this was one of another picture where I wanted to get a low-angle shot of a crocodile, and my friend was taking a shot of me. This is one of my favorite shots I ever made, getting very close to the crocodile and encountering with all these amazing animals that that were harmless. I wanted to make a lot of pictures of this, so started traveling across the globe. And the last thing I ever wanted to see was diving with the blue whale. So I got to know that Sri Lanka is a place where it is possible to dive with the blue whales, and I made a trip once. So whatever I did, I just did it out of my passion, and without even thinking tomorrow might not work or my future might not work. I just believe that something, you follow your passion, anything can follow you. So thank you very much.